So, 46 United States attorneys have been asked by the newly elected president of the United States to tender their resignations. So what? That's what I said. So what? But to hear it from the left, you would think this is just another affront to democracy and our way of life by the Trump administration. In fact, I'm surprised they didn't throw in the Russians. Let me give it to you straight. This is a non-story. It is not unusual for any new administration to seek the dismissal of political appointees, especially when a new party comes in. United States attorneys are political appointees who serve at the pleasure of the president. In 1993, Bill Clinton's administration sought the resignation of all sitting United States attorneys appointed by Republican President George Bush in one fell swoop. The Obama administration also replaced all United States attorneys but one from the Bush 43 administration. Now, for those of you who might be new to politics, a quote from President Barack Obama: "Elections have consequences." Or you might be more familiar with the old adage, "To the victor belong the spoils." But why go quietly and with dignity when you can create chaos? The United States attorney from New York's Southern District, without a doubt the premier district in the nation, digs in his heels and refuses to resign, absurdly claiming he won't resign and insisting the president fire him. Say what? Do you really think you have a claim to this office? Take a listen to Preet on November 30th when he rushed to the cameras at Trump Tower.
The president-elect asked, presumably because he's a New Yorker and is aware of the great work that our office has done over the past 7 years, asked to meet with me to discuss whether or not I'd be prepared to stay on as the United States Attorney, to do the work as we have done it, independently, without fear or favor for the last 7 years. We had a good meeting. I said I would absolutely consider staying on.
Folks, what are the operative words? The president asked if he'd be prepared to stay on, not please stay on. And his response was he would consider it. Now, he then goes on to say he was asked to stay on and he agreed, but we really don't know what was said. That's his version, not the Trump team's. And now, when 47 have already automatically stepped aside because they know the protocol, the remaining 46 are asked to tender their resignations. Bahara comes out, refuses to resign, and can't believe that this would apply to him, and says Donald Trump will have to fire him, as if he's got a hold on that office. And Preet, men bigger than you, gentlemen, have left when new administrations came in. Giants like Whitney Seymour, Robert Fisk, Rudy Giuliani, James Comey, David Kelly. So since this happens all the time, what's the fuss? All day today, the Trump haters have claimed any change interrupts ongoing investigations and prosecutions and ultimately jeopardizes Lady Justice, that especially in offices where public corruption cases are being tried, justice is at stake. As if only one man carries a whole office. Cut it out. Do you really think that this is the first time in the history of this country that a prosecutor, federal, state, local, town, village, hamlet, has been replaced by another one? What the hell do we do when they die? Just give up? Here's my question. No one but Preet Bharara used the word fire. All were asked for resignations. Who knows? Maybe some would have been asked to stay on. And just moments before we came on air, I found out 2 were even though they tendered their resignations. But because Preet has such a huge ego, because he thinks he's so all-important that he couldn't believe such a request could possibly apply to him, he ramped it up and dared the President of the United States to fire him. So what do you think happened? Lady Justice is winking under her bandages. And Donald Trump did what only Donald Trump can do so well. He said, "You're fired." And that's my opening statement. Tell me what you think on my Facebook page or Twitter. Hashtag Judge Jeanine. And joining me now is constitutional law professor at George Washington University, Jonathan Turley. All right, Jonathan Turley, you are a giant among constitutional lawyers. We're thrilled to have you on, Jonathan. Thank you. Am I wrong?
About my being a giant among constitutional lawyers? Absolutely not. You're correct on that, and I can't amplify that enough. No, the point is a very, very good one. I still am not sure what point was being made by the U.S. Attorney. He seems to be a rebel without a cause on this. He does serve at the pleasure of the President. This has happened before. It's not strange. And the great irony is that presidents will often ask for global resignations and decide not to accept some, which, of course, he decided in 2 cases to do precisely that. It might have been 3 cases, except the way that this was handled. But it's perfectly bizarre to me for people to lionize this act. I considered it deeply unprofessional. I mean, he is a high-ranking political appointee. He serves at the pleasure of the President. Many U.S. attorneys will put forward the resignation as a matter of course. But when you're asked by the Attorney General to put in your letter, you do so because you're a professional. And I'm not too sure what he was trying to achieve. I still don't know what the point is, quite frankly. I don't know why you would want the President to fire you.
Well, you know what? It's almost like Sally Yates. You know, they have to make themselves some kind of a hero to the left. But what is amazing is that my understanding is that Dana Bente had called every one of the remaining 47. 46 had already tendered their resignation. And they were called and they were told, look, you're going to get an email or a letter. And, you know, they got that courtesy ahead of time. And he went ballistic. He said, this can't possibly apply to me. But let's assume that he was right and he felt that he had been offered the job. At any point in time, he can be asked for his resignation. So what makes him think he's entitled to that job? I mean, it's juvenile.
It is juvenile, and that's what I find just mystifying, is that I don't know what he was trying to suggest when he said, you're going to have to fire me. It's like a guest that won't leave after dinner. You know, this isn't your table. I mean, you don't have the right to stay. But particularly as an attorney, it's not that your client is the President of the United States. He's not. It's not that you are dependent upon him. You're not. You're only dependent upon him in one sense, and that is he controls your office. He's the head of the executive branch. And so if someone comes to you as the President of the United States and says, I need all of your resignations, the answer is yes. And there's no variation on that. I don't understand why people are lionizing him for this. I considered this a rather silly and theatrical move. Well, you know, I also think, by the way, it's a shame because he has an impressive record, and I think he tarnished both his legacy and his office.
You know, it's interesting that you know, I've been listening to people on the left all day long and saying he's got such a great record, he's such a great prosecutor, but I don't know any United States attorney in the Southern District, as I said, the premier district in the nation, who hasn't been a phenomenal prosecutor. I mean, all of these men and one woman, as I recall, are the best of the best. And it's not as though they can't find somebody else who's terrific. But to those out there who think that one person carries the whole office, I mean, in fact, I mean, I ran an office. My chief assistant probably knew more about cases than I did. I mean, you know, you run the office, but, you know, in terms of the facts, there are a lot of other people below you who know a lot more than you do. But
I think that's right. I mean, when you're the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, you represent a premier office with people that work very hard, and that comes with a certain responsibility. You don't demean that office with these types of, frankly, juvenile acts. You know, you're a professional. You're the United States Attorney. You serve at the pleasure of the President. And if the President wants all of the resignations of every U.S. Attorney, you send it in. You don't have this sort of peevish, taunt. And so in the end, I think this is a sad way for him to end a very impressive career as U.S. Attorney.
Yes, very true. Jonathan Turley, certainly a giant. Thanks
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.